Okay, today you have your Q&A finals, your 200 Q&A final number 1. You have Chris Johnson, Nashville, Tennessee; Charlotte Pike, Nashville Police Department; Social Security, Pam; John, June, Davidson County; Carl Smith, Mr. Johnson, 2nd Avenue, Hooters, Nashville; and Mr. Smith. This is your 200 Q&A final number 1 for 5 minutes. Ready? Would you please state your full name for the record?
Chris Johnson.
All right, sir. You have no middle name?
No, sir, no middle name.
Okay, where do you live?
I live in Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay, what is your address?
I live at 5827 Charlotte Pike.
And what is your zip code?
37214.
All right. Where do you work?
Well, sir, I have not been working lately. Do you want my last job?
Yes, sir, that would be great.
Nashville Police Department.
And how long were you a police officer with the Nashville Police Department?
Okay, I think I was with them for until 2 years ago, so 5 years altogether.
Okay, thanks. Now let me go over some ground rules before I forget. When I ask you questions, if you could respond with a yes or no instead of or uh-huh or shake your head, that will be helpful for the court reporter.
Yes, sir, I understand.
Great. Now what is your social security number?
123456789.
Wow, that must be easy to remember.
It is.
And your telephone number?
Area code 615-238-1690.
Now, do you have a family, a wife, and children?
Yes, sir, I do.
What's your wife's name?
Pam.
And your children's names and ages, please?
John is 11 and June is 8.
All right, sir. And do you have any other relatives that live in Davidson County?
No, sir, not that I know of.
Okay. All right. Now, sir, I think you know the reason we're here today is an accident you were involved in 2 years ago with my client, Carl Smith.
Yes.
Do you remember the auto accident, Mr. Johnson?
Yes, I remember the accident.
And I believe the specific date of the accident was August 1st, 2003. Is that your recollection?
Yeah, I believe that's the date.
Okay, sir. Please describe the accident to me in your own words as you recall it.
All right, I'll try. Well, see, here I was in my patrol car writing up a ticket for a gentleman that had been speeding.
And let me stop you right there, please, sir. What is your location at this time?
I was pulled over on the right-hand side of the roadway on 2nd Avenue in front of Hooters.
Yes, sir. Please continue.
Okay, so I was writing up a ticket for this gentleman when I felt a jolt to the back of my vehicle.
And how hard was this impact?
I would say it was pretty hard, sir. I was thrown into the vehicle in front of me.
The speeder you were writing the ticket for?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And about what time of day would you say it was?
It was approximately 12 a.m., sir, midnight.
And what was the weather like that evening?
It was a hot, humid night in the summer in Nashville, sir.
So it was clear outside and not raining or anything?
That's correct, sir.
All right. And what did you do immediately after you were hit from behind?
Well, immediately after I was hit, I checked my rearview mirror to see what happened, who was behind me. I recall seeing a young white male inside a red convertible. Then I checked my mirror again for traffic and proceeded to get out of the vehicle. I noticed the gentleman in the convertible had the smell of alcohol about him and looked to be quite drunk.
Let me stop you again, please, sir. So the only evidence you have at this time to say that my client had been drinking was that you noticed the odor of alcohol on his person?
Yes, sir, that's correct. At this point, the man became quite belligerent and loud and began screaming at me. And I said, "Sir, please calm down and step out of the vehicle." But he refused to do so. In fact, the man continued his ranting and told me he was going to kick my ass. Then he...
Excuse me, let me interrupt you again. Mr. Smith actually threatened you with physical violence?
Yes, sir, he did.
Okay.
And then he said he would have his friends help him.
And do you know what friends he was talking about?
No, sir, but as soon as I got him out of the car and was searching him, I saw a bunch of loud, drunk men came spilling out of Hooters.
And again, it's just your opinion that they were drunk at this point. You had performed no breath test to confirm this, correct?
That's right. It's my opinion, my professional opinion. Well, as soon as Mr. Johnson caught sight of his friends, he began yelling at them for help. So now I had Mr. Johnson as well as his friends to deal with. But just then, Mr. Smith, the driver of the car in front of me, exited his vehicle and asked me if I needed help. He said, "Do you need help, officer? I know self-defense. I'm considered an expert black belt in karate, and I can help you take care of these rednecks." I said, "No, sir, please return to your vehicle." I then proceeded to open my patrol car door and put Mr. Johnson in back of the squad car. But before I could place him in the vehicle, I was grabbed from behind by one of his friends.
And by his, you mean Mr. Johnson?
Yes, sir. I was grabbed around my neck by someone and spun around. I barely had time to react before I saw the man's hand raised with a broken beer bottle coming towards me. But before the man could reach me, I saw Mr. Smith kick the bottle from the man's hand and then drive his fist up into the man's nose.
All okay, your 200 Q&A final number 2. You have Orange Street, Anaheim, and Alamitos. This is 200 Q&A number 2 for 5 minutes. Ready? Do you know what the speed limit is on Anaheim from Orange Street to the point where the accident occurred?
It was approximately 30 also.
From the point where you first made your left turn onto Anaheim, at that point, how many lanes are there for Anaheim for the direction you were traveling in?
2.
And when you first pulled from Orange onto Anaheim, did you pull into the lane closest to the center of the street or the lane closest to the curb?
The lane to turn.
Are there 3 lanes on Anaheim from the point where you made your left turn onto Orange?
Are you asking when I was on Orange?
No, you were on Orange. You made your left turn onto Anaheim, correct?
Yes.
I'm only talking about from that point when you first started traveling on Anaheim. How many lanes are there on Anaheim where you first started traveling on Anaheim?
2.
When you first started traveling on Anaheim, did you start out traveling in the lane closest to the center of the street or the lane closest to the curb?
I got in the first when I did turn, but I went gradually out from that lane to get in the second one.
When you say you first went into the first lane, do you mean the lane closest to the center of the street or the lane closest to the curb?
When I turned, at the moment I turned, I mean the inside lane.
Okay.
But at the moment of the accident, I wasn't anymore on that lane. I was already on the other one.
What distance did you drive in the lane closest to the center of the street on Anaheim before you moved into the curb lane?
Can you repeat the question?
What distance did you travel in the lane closest to the center of the street on Anaheim before you made your lane change into the curb lane?
I don't know.
Do you have any estimate at all?
No.
What distance had you traveled in the curb lane on Anaheim before the accident occurred?
I don't know either.
Do you have any estimate at all?
No.
Were you in the process of making a lane change at the time of the accident?
What do you mean?
Were you in the process of making a lane change when the accident occurred?
No.
Did you make a lane change as you were traveling through the intersection where the accident occurred?
I was already on the lane before that.
Where did the accident occur?
On where Anaheim and Alamitos cross each other.
And as you were approaching the intersection of Anaheim and Alamitos, did you see whether or not there were any type of traffic lights or traffic controls for your direction of travel before you entered the intersection?
Yes, there was a traffic light.
And what color was your traffic light the first time you noticed it at the intersection of Anaheim and Alamitos?
Green.
What distance were you from the intersection when you first noticed your green traffic light?
A short distance.
What distance?
I don't know.
Do you understand measurements at all?
Not much.
Do you understand blocks, car lengths, anything at all?
I was already arriving when I saw the green light.
My question is, what distance were you from the intersection when you first saw your green light? You can describe it with blocks, car lengths, feet, meters, whatever you feel comfortable with.
I don't know exactly. Less than half a block, I think.
Is that your best estimate?
Yes, approximately.
Did you ever see your traffic light change from green to any other colors?
No.
How much time went by from the time you first saw your green traffic light to the time of the accident?
I don't know.
What's your best estimate?
I can just say a little because I was already arriving to the light.
What's your best estimate as to that amount of time?
No, maybe seconds. Not even a minute, I think.
How many seconds?
I don't know.
Was it less than 1 minute?
It's possible.
Was it possibly more than 1 minute?
No.
What's your best estimate as to how much less than 1 minute it was from the time you first saw your green light until the time of the accident?
I don't know.
You have no estimate at all?
No.
Did you ever see your traffic light change from green to any other colors from the time you first noticed it until the time of the accident?
No.
Did you ever look at your traffic light again from the time you first noticed it until the time of the accident?
Can you repeat the question?
Did you ever look at your traffic light again from the time you first noticed it being green until the time of the accident?
I just know that it was green when I was entering the street.
Did you ever see your traffic light change from green to any other colors from the time you first saw it until the time of the accident?
If I saw that it changed to another color?
Yes.
No, just the one I just told you.
Did you continue watching your traffic light from the time you first saw it until the time of the accident?
Yes.
Do you have an estimate as to whether or not more than 20 seconds went by from the time you first saw your traffic light until the time of the impact?
Will you repeat the question?
Do you have an estimate as to whether or not more than 20 seconds went by from the time you first saw your traffic light until the time of the accident?
I don't know. I just know they were seconds, but I don't know.
Do you have an estimate as to whether or not more than Okay, on your 180 Q&A final number 1, you have Mr. Kemper, Toyota, and Lincoln. This is your 180 Q&A final number 1 for 5 minutes. Ready? Mr. Kemper, how fast were you going when you saw the other car?
I was going about 15 miles an hour.
What happened then?
The next thing I felt was the impact, and I was knocked almost unconscious.
You were driving a Toyota?
Yes.
Was it a 4-door or a 2-door model?
It was a 2-door.
Is that car equipped with seatbelts?
I don't really remember.
Do you remember whether you were wearing a seatbelt?
Yes, I always fasten the seatbelt.
So you were wearing a seatbelt, is that right?
That's right.
You don't remember what time this occurred, do you?
No.
Were you in any particular hurry to get to this other place where you had to go?
No, sir.
Did you hear a screeching of tires or honking of horns before the impact?
No, sir.
Did you attempt any evasive action before the impact?
Yes, I did.
What did you do?
I tried to speed up and get out of the way.
How did you do that? By putting your foot on the accelerator?
Yes, sir.
And were you able to accelerate?
I would assume I accelerated, but it happened so quickly.
No. What part of your car and what part of the other car came in contact with each other?
The right front side of the Lincoln hit my left front end just above the door.
Do you mean just in front of the door?
It was demolished, the whole front end.
Where did your car end up after the impact?
In that particular spot, it just stopped completely.
What happened to the Lincoln? Was it against your car when it came to a stop?
Yes, it was. It was against my car.
Were you knocked unconscious?
I was in a daze. I was knocked out of my seat and over on the passenger side.
What was the position of your body after the impact?
I was knocked all the way over to the passenger side of the car on the floor area.
You were on the floor?
Yes.
Where were your legs? Were they on the floor?
I would assume they were in the air.
Where was your head? Was it on the seat or on the floor?
My head hit some object. You can't recall the details when you are being hit, you know?
Was your seatbelt still on when you were in this position?
Yes, it was still on. They are very flexible, you know? I was knocked over.
And you say your head hit something?
Yes, it did.
Do you know what it hit?
I would assume the console. I really don't know.
Your car had a floor shift?
It had a console, a floor shift.
How many impacts were there? One or more than one?
One impact.
What did you do after the impact?
I opened the passenger side of the car and sat there until I could get myself together because I was in a daze. I just sat there.
You got out of the car?
I put my feet on the ground.
You opened the passenger door?
Yes, and I sat there until I could get myself together. It was a nightmare.
How long did you sit there?
Until the police came.
Did you talk with the other driver at any time?
No.
Did the other driver remain at the scene?
Yes, he did.
When the police came, what happened?
They took me to the hospital.
Did they talk to you about the accident before they took you to the hospital?
No, sir.
Did they take you in a squad car?
No, they took me in a paddy wagon.
How did you get into the paddy wagon? Were you carried on a stretcher?
No, I was assisted by the police.
Were you in any pain at that time?
Yes, I was.
What was bothering you?
My head, my neck, my back, and my arm.
Was your head bothering you?
It was hurting.
What part of it was hurting?
Well, when you have a headache, you don't know which part of it is hurting.
You had a headache?
My head was hurting. My head banged against something.
What part of your head hurt?
I don't know.
Was it your forehead or the back of your head?
All I know is my head was hurting.
What kind of a pain was it?
That's a difficult question for me to answer.
You can't answer it?
You have to be hit on the side of the head in order to understand it.
All right. Were you bleeding?
There was blood coming from my right hand.
Was your head bleeding?
No.
You also said your back was bothering you. What part of your back was bothering you?
The upper part.
Like in between your shoulder blades and your neck area?
Yes, sir.
Was it a sharp pain?
I get pains now.
I didn't ask you that. I asked if it was a sharp pain you felt at that time.
It wasn't a sharp pain. It was very sore. You have to be hit in order to understand what I am trying to say.
Could you turn your head from one side to the other?
My neck wasn't broken.
I didn't ask you that. I asked if you could turn your head from one side. Okay, and your 180 Q&A number 2, final. You have Mr. Cortez, Alameda Avenue, Mr. Loya, Fred Loya Insurance Company, Las Cruces, Mike Miller, U Pullet Salvage, and WD-40. This is 180 Q&A final number 2 for 5 minutes. Ready? Mr. Cortez, after the fire, did you receive notice from the landlord to vacate the premises on Alameda Avenue?
After the fire, yes.
How long after the fire?
2 or 3 months.
When did you vacate?
I believe it was in December.
When did you move into the new quarters?
In November, I think.
Was it before or after you received the notice to vacate?
I don't remember just when I got the notice.
Did you have any discussion with anybody after the fire about the maintenance of the equipment to keep it from rusting?
I talked to Mr. Loya.
Mr. Loya from Fred Loya Insurance Company, is that right?
That's right.
How long after the fire did you talk with Mr. Loya?
I don't recall.
Was it days or weeks?
It had to be days.
Who else was present at that conversation?
I think it was over the phone.
What did Mr. Loya tell you about maintenance?
He told me to oil down all the equipment.
Did he tell you why?
I guess it was to inhibit rusting.
Did you have all the equipment oiled?
I did it myself immediately.
And that was within a week after the fire?
It was less than that.
What did you do with the equipment that was in there at the time of the fire?
We couldn't do anything with it. Mr. Loya said he didn't want us to move it.
Was it finally moved?
Yes.
When?
In December.
Where was it moved?
It was moved to our new quarters.
In Las Cruces?
That's right.
Is any of the equipment in use right now?
Yes, it is.
How much of it?
Oh, 4 or 5 pieces.
What pieces?
It depends upon what you are referring to.
Well, any of the equipment that was in the fire.
Maybe half of it.
What did you have to do to this equipment to get it back in use?
We had to clean it and replace some parts. It is functional, but it is not in good condition.
Did you have your own people clean the equipment and repair it, or did you call in somebody else?
Our people did most of the work, but we bought some new parts and had some repaired.
By outside sources?
I think so.
What pieces were repaired by outside sources?
I am not sure, but an outside electrician worked on all of the electrical parts.
What is his name?
Mike Miller.
Does he go by that name as a company?
Well, he has his own repair shop.
Do you have an accounting for the cost of putting each machine in working order?
No.
Do you have an accounting for the cost of putting all of the equipment back in running condition?
No.
So you can't tell from your records how much it costs you to put the equipment in working order?
I think we could come up with the cost of the work done by outside help, but I don't think there is a separate record of the time put in by our employees.
What about the parts?
We would have bills for the parts.
What about the parts that you had on hand as opposed to the parts that you ordered?
I think we can get that information.
What about the other equipment that has not been put back into use? Where is that?
It is at our plant in Las Cruces.
Is it still oiled?
Yes.
Did the oil inhibit the rust?
I don't think so. The rust had already set in.
Did anybody advise you to oil the equipment before you talked to Mr. Loya?
No.
Did you know yourself that you should oil the equipment to stop the rust from setting in?
I don't know the extent of the damage. I think Mr. Loya should have had the equipment oiled.
What I am asking you is whether you knew yourself that the equipment should have been oiled before Mr. Loya told you.
No, I found out later that he was wrong. It should not have been oiled.
Who told you that?
The people that he hired to take the equipment out of the damaged area.
Who were these people?
They were from You Pull It Salvage.
Who told you it should not have been oiled?
The man that ran the operation.
Did he tell you why it should not have been oiled?
He said a different compound should have been used.
What did he tell you should have been used?
WD-40.
Is that an oil?
No, it is a water or moisture remover.
Is the bulk of the damage to this equipment just water rust?
I don't know if it is rust from water or rust from humidity.
Very little of this equipment was actually in the fire area, isn't that right?
That's right.
Did you keep any type of motor vehicle inside the building?
Do you mean like a lift truck?
Well, a regular truck or a car that ran on gasoline.
Not a car or a truck, but a lift truck.
What did it run on?
I think they both ran on gasoline.
Regular gasoline?
Yes.
Did you have 2 lift trucks in the building?
Yes.
And they both ran on gasoline?
Yes.
Did you keep a storage of gasoline in the building?
Usually in the back building.
At the time of the Good luck.